Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And today is definitely a figure that I would use the term polarizing for some, but I look at him as somebody that's been entrenched in so much of, I would say, like 90s, 2000 Detroit political and some business actions, always in the mix. And right now at the forefront of the Reparations Task Force and so much more. And you definitely got an opinion on him. And believe me, like I got an opinion on everything, he got an opinion on everything. And even though we butt heads, I'm talking about it. An OG, somebody to know, ready to get to some actions. And we'll always be talking about, man, I just want to do this for black people. Keith Williams, how you doing today?
I'm so blessed I don't know what to do.
I already love the response. I love it. I love it.
I woke
man.
up this morning.
I woke up this morning. Yeah. All right. So in that spirit, let's get into the classic Detroit is Different. Your people, how you got here. How many generations deep is your family to Detroit?
Well, my grandparents came from Cordell, Georgia.
Oh, where's Cordell, Georgia?
It's about 100 miles out of Atlanta.
North, south, east, west?
It's going more towards the Florida borders.
Okay.
And my grandparents...
you said 100 miles, man. It's damn near in Florida. Okay.
Yeah, no, I say about 50 or 60. Okay. But then after Cordell, you got Valdosta and things like that. Where my father, Cornelius Williams, had to run out of Georgia because if you look at the history of Cordelli, as they call it, it was a lot of lynchings and stuff. And so my granddad had to take his wife, my grandmother, and my aunt Bobby, and they fled to the north. Okay.
All right. So was he actually, as we know, James Boggs and also Coleman Young and their family were seeking asylum for real? Like it was an active lynch mob looking for. So like if you all are familiar with the term lynch mob, there were lynch mobs, and just so we get a right frame piece of history, American history. White folks would go to lynchings like it was baseball games. You know what I'm saying? Thousands of people would gather. They would, hence what still is always, tough to talk about. They would have picnic baskets and eat sandwiches and be barbecuing to watch the lynching of black men historically. Without Sanctuary is a great book, but really if you study any of the works of Ida B. Wells, and shout out to Ida B. Wells and so many of the other ones, and we can get this even in contemporary jazz through Strange Fruit and many people that have sung that, and this was just real. That so many people sought asylum to come from the South, make their way here because it was like an active lynch mob looking for them.
My granddaddy wasn't trying to find no asylum. He was fleeing.
Gotcha.
He got on somebody's truck. I still don't know the modes of transportation, but he got out of Dodge, okay? So he came up to Hamtramck. He didn't come to Detroit. My father grew up in Hamtramck.
Wow, okay.
My father was born in 1922.
Okay.
He had 4 sisters that, were born during that time. And my mother came up in the 40s. Was it the 40s? I'm trying to remember. She came from Macon, Georgia.
Wow, so another person from Georgia.
And my father and mother met walking down the street on Russell.
Interesting.
Okay, and she fell in love, and they got married.
Okay, what was the game back in the day? What did he say? Did he say?
I don't know. My father, he was a short guy. He's a player because he had 9 kids. 9 kids in my family. Okay.
He must have knew something to say.
Yeah, and my mother she was leaving her school to come up here to go to Cass Tech.
Okay.
Or there was a business school or something like that. And she just wanted to, advance her career, what she was trying to do. And she fell in love. And my father, I'm trying to get the story right. My father he participated in World War II because I saw some of his documents. And then when he came out, and that's when he met my mother. And then they moved into Black Bottom.
So, all right, let's put this in a larger lens too. and this is brought up in a lot of these Detroiters difference, that a lot of families that migrated here, that great migration of black folks coming from the south to the north, like it still would be like certain groups, like my family, Thomasville, Georgia, and the I don't even know what is it, Georgians or Georgians, I don't know what the term is, but different people from different parts of the South like kind of connected. And a lot of black folks in Detroit are from Georgia and Alabama. I would say those are probably, from all my interviews, seem to be the number one places.
My wife's family's from Mississippi.
Now, Mississippi, a lot of them folks went to Chicago because it's further west. The train patterns dictated the migration patterns usually. Right. And some, but you still get a couple people from like Arkansas, Mississippi, and they stick and kind of be together a little bit. And
see, the big migration of blacks came really in the 1900s. Okay, 1906 because of the Packer plant. Okay, there was about 6,000 blacks during that time.
Yeah.
But the big migration is 1929 when 120,000 blacks came from the South to work at Ford Motor Company. That was the attraction. The automotive industry was the attraction for black people to come make a living, especially $5 a day during that time was a lot of money for black folks.
Definitely. And we've, and you're uplifting a lot of stuff that we explore with all of these collections of interviews here, because you're right. You definitely want to shake sharecropping for the $5 workday, even though it wasn't always a $5 workday for everybody black, but it was still way better conditions than sharecropping and what was given in the South. For so many black folks and black families, as you say, like that what Ford Motor Company connected to, which I often also say, like, that's the start of the labor movement, which starts in the roots of racism, like a lot of stuff in this nation. And then it changes as time goes on. But the foundation of America, the further back you go and you a black person, the more angry you're going to get because it ain't designed for us, like I always say.
To me, it was a continuation of a legal plantation.
Yeah, yeah. So so your mom comes to Cass Tech. Yeah. Even back then, Cass Tech was something to travel up for.
But the interesting thing about Cass Tech, because he was a slave owner too.
Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah. But there was a business college, a business school where, the freeway, and I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Was it Commerce?
Commerce, that's what it is. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so they came up, and next thing you know, they hooked up, and then the rest is history.
So that's your mom ended up going to Commerce, not Cass.
Yeah, Commerce.
Okay.
Yes.
So for people to know, it was once a school, and my aunt Shirley was like one of those last classes in Commerce or whatever. But Commerce was a business school, and it was similar to like Lewis College of Business. I'm Lewis College of Business, and at the time, looking for people with different skill sets to work in offices for those factories, white collar work. And this was a good opportunity for certain people. What was your mom doing? What was your dad doing?
My father he went to World War II, came back.
Army, what branch?
Was an Army.
Okay.
And then my mother was, she was living in the South at the time. And when she turned, I think it was 18, and she left. She had to get out. I had a strict grandfather, okay?
Okay.
And my mother wanted to do something with her life.
Okay.
And she left. And so she came to live with my Aunt Tessie, that's what they called her, on Russell, okay? And so she moved there, and my father came back from the war. Bam. They
connected
both came,
right there in Black
connected
Bottom.
Right there. No, they connected on Russell. They connected on Russell because if you look at Oakland Avenue, you can see Hamtramck is just around the corner.
Yeah.
On one side of Detroit, and the other side is Hamtramck.
Okay.
And my father grew up in 1922 in Hamtramck. He was born in 22. Him and his sisters. And then, the maturation of his life, he graduated from Hamtramck High School. Then he went into war.
Well, I want to frame this for all the people not from Detroit. Inside of Detroit, there are two cities. It's Highland Park and Hamtramck. So Highland Park and Hamtramck. Like Highland Park was like a place of like opulence and decadence for some of the executives that worked at Ford plant. Like that was Highland Park is the home of the first Model T Ford plant.
Yeah.
Hamtramck close, and it was also a working town, but a lot of Eastern Europeans at the time stayed there. So like what I call this is like the other whites. So like Polish. Other than Polish, you'd have like a lot of like the Scandinavian, like a lot of the whites that aren't in what we consider quote unquote traditional whiteness, of Germanic, French, and British, were in Hamtramck. So poor whites kind of were there. What did your dad speak to of like growing up in a community like that?
Was interesting. My father played baseball. I got some pictures I can show you. The baseball team that was configured back in those days. My father was an athlete, and he said he got along with the Polish. He went to high school with them. There was some racism in the place, but my father said he enjoyed himself until he left and went off to war. Him and his nephew, Jim Lee Thomas. So, and my father had a bunch of sisters. Okay.
How many?
It's about 8 sisters.
Oh man! And how many brothers?
He was the only boy.
Oh, so he was fighting off everybody trying to come to the house, trying to.
Yeah, but what happened is,
trying to say get fresh with your auntie.
His oldest sister and my grandmother was pregnant at the same time.
Wow.
They was born 6 months apart.
Oh, so he was the youngest?
No, my.
Oh, okay.
No, my father was the oldest, and his nephew was like 6 months.
Okay.
Yes. And so. They, it was one big family, but we lost during that period of time. We lost a lot of, like 3 aunts to tuberculosis.
Wow.
TB was a big thing back in those days. Okay, and it's interesting when we doing this thing with University of Michigan now, and we trying to find all the harms that was caused from the inception of blacks moving into Detroit. They never mentioned. They always talk about the aftermath of I-375, the pollution and dust and all that other stuff, but they never talked about tuberculosis, and I always got to bring it up. I had family members that died in the house. My mother had a guy, my grandfather had a guy living in the house, and he brought tuberculosis to the house.
Wow. And for people that don't know, TB, and it's so interesting, TB is what they call it. Tuberculosis, even to this day, like they talk about similar to COVID-19 and virology and like viruses and putting them in the bed and what vaccines exist and stuff. But like for the longest time, if you were a certain age, you had that tag on your skin because you got the TB shot, like people would know.
It's a form of lung disease. And then what's interesting, and then in 1950, then my family, we had my sister Brenda, Michael, Pam, Kenny, Sam. They was born in Black Bottom. They all went to Dunbar. I was born in Black Bottom. I was born in 1956 on a street called West 4th Street. You can drive over there by King High School, and you can see the street west. It's got 4th Street, and we lived on King's football field.
Okay.
And I was born in 56 in Women's Hospital. So then my younger brother Dennis was born in 1959. Then we moved to Homer Street on the west side, right down the street from University of Detroit. And what's interesting, my brother Dennis died in my mother's arms. We was all in the house in 61. We watched my brother die in the house because he couldn't get access to health care.
I mean, when we think about even what still exists, shout out to Dr. Lovejoy that was here studying the dynamics of the disparities that exist in the health systems, and University of Michigan professor that just did a study when we talk about U of M studies, and we were talking about medical apartheid, and then also Bob Rennie when the president of Henry Ford Health Systems talking about the way that medical institutions are not hearing black women specifically. Infant mortality in the black community has been a problem for the longest of time and continues to be a problem. And so to hear at 2 years old, your brother passes away at the house in your mother's arms because they were not given any sufficient health care.
Yes. I think we was trying to get the people to come to the house, and he died of measles and pneumonia. And so we couldn't get, my mother did the best. She thought the old remedies and all this other stuff didn't work, and he died. I was in the house. I was 5 years old. That was a sad moment in my family's. And I think my father never got over that.
So, and with this, yeah, that's heavy. That's heavy.
Yes.
So let's go kind of also to, have you ever been back down to Georgia to visit where your family was, mom and dad?
Well, my cousins, there's a big contingency of family that lives in River Rouge. My grandfather, my grandfather, my grandmother, and my grandmother's brother came to the Hamtramck first. And then the Harringtons moved to River Rouge. My granddaddy helped, and their grandfather helped, and my mother's brother, they built a house on Polk Street.
In what era?
That was had to be in the 50s and the 60s, something like that.
Because we oftentimes, in exploring this, and you may be able to give a little bit more light to it, downriver, like when we think of like that part of Southwest Detroit, Inkster, River Rouge, like a lot of that area was not becoming as populated until as time went on. Yeah. But so your family was like some of the first black folks, I'm guessing, over there.
Yes, it were. You remember black folks came to live in Inkster. Why? Before go to plant.
Yeah, ink stirred. Also, you can know that ink meaning black, stirred, like the whole concept. Yeah.
They all moved because they all came here because the Ford plant.
Yeah.
Okay, so we came and went to Hamtramck. Then my grandmother's brother went to River Rouge and Ecor. So there's all my cousins out there. The older generation's going off to glory. But I remember when I was a kid, we always went out to Elizabeth Park for our family reunions. When people started talking about family reunions, we was doing that back in the early 60s. I was 63, I was 6 years old, okay? And, man, I just remember all our families to get together. And so it was interesting. I didn't know who the Williams were until 2 years ago. I went on Ancestry, and I found my cousins. I got, some census information and all that other. But Ancestry helped me, and to this day, I found the majority of my cousins now.
Okay, so now let's explore a little bit about more so your journey. So your brothers and sisters all went to Dunbar. Dunbar is a legendary school with a heck of a legacy because it being one of the schools that actually taught so many of the black students from Black Bottom. It has one of those, Miller, Dunbar, like it's a couple just like legendary schools. Yeah. What school did you go to? Where did you start?
And let me just say this. What's interesting where Dunbar is at is on a street called Macomb. Macomb was a slave owner too. Okay, in 1961, when I began my educational prowess, I went to Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is on Green Line and Puritan. In 1963, I went from the kindergarten to the third grade. I got bused in 1963. So just imagine, in 1963, I'm going to a school that's majority black, and then they said all of a sudden they couldn't build bigger schools, so they started integrating the school systems in the city of Detroit. I was part of that. At 63, I started going to school called McKinney on Burke Road and 7 Mile. Just imagine, I lived on Puritan, between Midland and Puritan, the Lodge, all in that area. We got a bus that came on Midland at the end of our block. I lived on Homer, and there was one on Quincy, and we loaded up, and they took us way out to McKinney near Telegraph. Okay, so I went there from the 3rd to the 6th grade. And what happened was interesting. Every kid in my 6th grade class, a white kid had to take him home for lunch. And to this day, I'm trying to find the guy that took me home to lunch. His name was Joel Rosenberg, a Jewish kid. Okay? And that opened my eyes up because I'll never forget going down the street in that old DSR bus, somebody calling us niggers. Here come the niggers. Okay? Then from there, I went to Metatol. Metatol. That was a different educational experience. Now I'm starting to see kids coming from Sherwood Forest, Russell Woods, Oakland Boulevard. Parents were doctors, educators, social workers. That was, that was the flavor of the day when it came down to employment for educated black people.
Yeah.
And so I got that experience. I'm still a product of a factory worker and a mother did house day work to keep our family together. And so I got that experience. Then I went from Metatol to Henry Ford.
So you were already, being that you were going in that area like Burt Road and 7 Mile, you were already kind of familiar with that community around Henry Ford even beforehand.
Yeah, I say this to you. My traveling was a bad experience that turned out to be right.
Now, let me ask this too, because I often hear about it, and this is just more so also Detroit lore. I was too young. It was, I hear it's like an amusement park that used to be like right.
Edgewater.
When was that there? When you were there, or
yes,
when did it come?
There.
Okay.
Edgewater. I don't know what year the Edgewater, finally is demise. That's what Greater Grace is now. It was Edgewater Park. We used to go there.
Okay.
And the mouse trap, the roller coaster, and all that stuff. But I'm going to tell you, in my educational travels, my trajectory should have been Fitzgerald, Post, Cooley, Central, or Mumford. Back in those days, in the middle of my block, some kids went to Cooley and some kids went to Mumford or Central. Okay? I could even have gone to Northwestern. That's how centralized where we live. And to this day, Kyrie, I don't know why my father moved down the street from a university like University of Detroit. All my life, I saw this university walking down the street. I played on it. I did everything on that campus. I met students. So in all actuality, it was shaping me shape me as the man I am today. Okay, it was getting me prepared for school, for college.
So yeah, because it seems like you'd have went to Mumford. What was your journey at Henry Ford like? What was Henry Ford like?
My first year, what changed me, I started playing sports, started playing football. And then that's how I started meeting kids, and then the kids from Metatol. So I had, just imagine, the kids that I grew up with were no longer my friends. I had new friends. And that's why it's so important the kids to get out of their zip codes and try to find better zip codes or interesting zip codes that you can grow. Those zip codes, me changing all these zip codes, made me the man I am today.
And it strengthens your social skills.
Yes.
I think pouring into our own communities like I do over here, it's arguments for that, but it definitely gives more of a breadth and depth of understanding for the way people live, work, and commune as you've touched different spaces and places. What was Henry Ford's makeup like? Was it majority black?
It was 2% black, and white was the rest.
Wow.
And we had a race riot. I was part of a race riot. After football practice, we had to be escorted down Evergreen to 7 Mile to get on the bus.
So it was like, what's that? It was like the Remember the Titans movie with Denzel Washington or something?
Yes. It was terrible. But the football team was white and black. I don't know if there was a part of it in an indirect way, but at practice, we didn't talk about that. All we was just told to be safe, be careful.
What position you play?
I played wide receiver, and then when in defensive end, when I got my senior year, I played 3 positions: punter, defensive end, offensive end.
Okay. All right. And then also during this time, because Henry Ford is another one of those schools, kind of like, my Northwestern. It's a lot of other programming that's inside of Henry Ford. Henry Ford, Cody, Northwestern, it's like drafting and like a lot of the vocations were inside the school. What were you taking up? Did you take up any of the vocations at Henry Ford, or were you just
Man,
in
I
the
was
books?
just going to school.
Okay, you were just a student.
I was just going to school.
Student in football.
Really. Hey man, I was going to play sports. I was going to school, but not getting into school. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
all right, I got you.
You know, and when I realized it was my senior year, I didn't have no grades.
Okay.
But what I did, Kyrie, was so interesting. And to this day, I didn't realize what I did, but they're doing it now. I got a release out of high school. My senior year, getting ready to graduate, the principal let me go. I went to Henry Ford Community College to strengthen my grades. And while I was going to Henry Ford, he let me graduate.
Was there a relationship between Henry Ford Community College and Henry Ford?
I don't know. I just
You just
found
went.
out. I did my own research because I made a choice. I'm not going to stay in that neighborhood because heroin was coming. The working class black folks were leaving, dying. They was moving to over 7 Mile because everybody was migrating towards the west side, and you know where the good parts of Sherwood Forest in that area. My parents had too many kids, and they had no money to move, so we had to make do with what we had. But the people that were on the street, they worked in the plants. Like I tell everybody, all I heard at 3 o'clock morning, somebody's car was starting up going somewhere to work. And when they came back home, you can know the men was coming back home because you could smell the aroma of food. And I always remember the kid, the street light between Miss Scott's house and Miss Hardy's house. We did our little games because that was our lighting. We didn't, in high school back in those days, you played the game between 3 and 6, okay? Because we didn't have no street, we didn't have no lights. I always remember the ref got that clock, speeding the plays up and everything. Know how they say they play fast now? We was playing fast because we didn't have no lights.
That's funny.
Yes.
Now, in that same thing, you a black guy, star athlete, you're in a school that's majority white. I'm pretty sure that the attention of some white cheerleaders liking black athletes, what was that whole concept like, I think, back then in that era?
I don't want to go deep into that one.
But I assume it was some challenges, I'd assume.
It was some challenges. And
because I assume that's like a rock and a hard place, because even if, as we've seen this as a tale as old as time, Othello or something, like, I'm not attracted to her. But if she's attracted to you, well, really, I guess you could go Mandingo too. You know what I'm saying? But like so many things.
If you look at the current configurations, if you look at TikTok, Instagram, who do you see the star athletes with? White girls. And I posted that. I said, why can't the brothers lift up the sister that's been struggling, eating greens and cornbread? And they make an adjustment out of their culture. They making it easy for another culture to benefit from our struggles.
Well, I would say for today, it's more of a contemporary discussion, but that's why I was asking for, like, back then. I assume it was all types of stress, even if a brother wanted to dip in. Yeah, that was what I was saying.
Hide and get a kiss. You know what I'm saying? It couldn't be. You could be out there with that. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I'm guessing y'all prom was very interesting, to say the least.
My prom was interesting.
All right, so after Henry Ford, what's on deck?
I went up to Eastern Michigan. I got recruited to play football at Western, but I chose Eastern.
Why did you choose Eastern?
I don't know. I'll tell you why. Ernie Clark, who just died recently, used to play linebacker for the Detroit Lions. He recruited every guy. I'm going to tell you, that's why I became friends with the Northwestern guys. Ernie used to be somewhere affiliated with the West Side Cubs. So he had a tryout at University of Detroit. And I was one of the kids that tried out. And he offered me to go say, you can come. He said, I can get you there, but I can't keep you there. Eastern Michigan. Ron Johnson, Titus Dawson, Chucky Mitchell, we all became friends. I've been knowing Ron Johnson played in Norfolk since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Okay, we first met at Wayne State because Wayne State had a 707 league. And the guy
They
who
was playing 707 back then?
they call it a different name back in that day.
Okay.
But that's how we became friends. I always tell the story, Titus. We didn't have no pads, but y'all was tackling back then.
I think the no pad tackling was definitely something that was going on. Really, like we used to play, and I'm sure you guys did, touch in the street, tackle on the grass, which basically is you asking for somebody to get injured because the person run and you try to get to the sidewalk part of the grass so nobody try to tackle you and then you run back on the grass. Goofy. But yeah, it was a lot of, it was the recklessness of it. And let's talk a little bit about football itself. I think football, like boxing, they're violent sports. They're looking to make them a lot more safe. And it's tough because it's changed the game completely. Like even when I watch it, like it's so different now, but it's still at the root of it. It's a violent sport. What's your take on like the risk you were taking then playing it, as safety was not looked at the same way? I mean, you knock a guy out back then, I assume, it was just 90s for me, and it'd be looked at like, yeah. Whereas,
To me, I was trying to play. I was trying to go in another direction with my life. And sports
provided it.
My familiarity was football when I was a kid, and I sat next to my father and watched the football games. I go back when the Baltimore Colts, New York Giants. My father took us down to Tiger Stadium. He had 5 boys he had to feed. 8 kids he had to feed. We sit in the crow's nest, the poor folks section.
The crow's nest. I never heard that term, but I'm taking it.
Yeah, it was the crow's nest.
The crow's nest.
Folk about the crow's nest.
The crow's nest.
They waited them seats way up at the top of the stadium, man.
Yeah.
And so, hey,
that's before Jumbotron too.
Yeah. We had a good view, but it was way up there. No amenities. Okay, we had to walk down to go get our food and stuff. But my first game I saw New York Giants, Y.A. Tittle, crew cut quarterback. Okay, I don't know if the Lions beat him that day, but my father used to take us to those games. We went to the Tigers games because that all those that infrastructure had a racist past. Briggs Stadium.
Yeah,
black folks couldn't go there.
Yeah,
that's why to this day you don't see a lot of black people going to Comerica Park or Tiger Stadium. It's because what had happened to them back in the day has continued to this present day.
Wow, that's something. So Briggs Stadium is the original stadium of the Tigers.
Because you already know Briggs Stadium had Ty Cobb, one of the racist Hall of Famers that came out of Detroit. He played for the Tigers.
We definitely know, and what's his name? The Ty Cobb movie with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes.
And they talk about him because Ty Cobb is definitely one of the most. He
was a rotten person.
He was one of the most vocal about not wanting to play with Jackie Robinson and any black players, or any time the interleague played between the Negro League and Major League Baseball. In my mind, I guess it's like
isn't it interesting? White supremacists never left and never will leave.
I would go as far as, and then also Ty Cobb is known as like one of the greatest baseball players ever too.
At that time.
Yeah, and
I have an interesting take on Jackie Robinson.
Well, I think I do want to hear it. I do too. I remember me and shout out Sam Riddle. Me and Sam Riddle had the longest debate after 42 was released, the movie with Chad Boswick. As my take on Jackie Robinson is this. I have so much respect for the journey and path that Jackie Robinson took. I do not like the way that the Jackie Robinson story is framed, because they frame the story of Jackie Robinson, Jesse Owens, sometimes Martin Luther King and John Lewis and all of these black people like, we must be so resilient even if white people spit on you and they send dogs at you and that's how excellent you are because you have a lesson to teach them. That doesn't necessarily mesh with my belief. I think that the framing should look different. The framing should always not be, hey, let's teach them in their ignorance to treat us like people, kind of like the Help movie. The framing should be this: they're bigoted, they're racist, they're violent, and they're wrong. And what I'm dealing with in this state of chaos is a way that I'm trying to feed my family, which is the framework that I would tell that story if Kari Frazier ever was greenlit the money to tell the Jesse Owens story. I would tell it, and then also I would tell it like, if you thought Hitler was bad, I mean, Hitler sold out Tiger Stadium, Madison Square Garden. His biggest support was from like all across Walt Disney. So it's like I even think Ty Cobb. I mean, I don't see the difference between Ty Cobb and Shoeless Joe Jackson. I assume they was all the same.
But this is my take.
Well, let's go.
Here's my perspective.
Here we go.
Here's my perspective.
Now y'all like in one of our phone calls.
Okay. Jackie Robinson destroyed Negro League baseball.
Oh man.
From this standpoint.
Oh man, this is definitely provocative.
Hey, this is from this standpoint. Branch Rickey saw an emerging market.
Yeah.
He saw how the Negroes were running their business, the number men were running their business. They had their own broadcasting. They had their own ESPN. They had hotels, and all that commerce was going. So they plucked what they thought one of our jewels and said, we're going to integrate you into a situation thinking that black folks will follow. It's a historical pattern here, okay?
Yeah.
But when Jackie Robinson was negotiating this deal, he should have negotiated the lifeline for Negro baseball, make it AAA or a feeding system in perpetuity.
Okay, and I love that take. I think that would have been very forward thinking, and I feel that take too.
See, Kyrie, that's the problem with black people now.
I mean, but you gotta sometimes. This is a classic conversation between me and Keith. Now, it's like you have to give the like ignorance and unknown, and then also knowing what's going on in the section. Like you never know, especially in battling white hegemony or white supremacy, the ways that it morphs. Like it's a battle. It's like anything else. You run a play, then I run a play. You run a play, then I run a play. You run this play, you're thinking, like now you got me really in this zone. Like, hence, at one point in time, it was believed, I think, that black folks thought, all right, cool. If we can get access to education, then that'll level the playing field and we'll be respected as equals. We exhausted that option, and in some ways, some gains were made, but it never was a pervasive ideology. Then it was like, okay, all right, let's get in the political system, and that'll bring balance for black folks. We're still trying to exhaust that, and it's like, and then it's a lot of black people that's like, if we get a lot of money, and it's like, look, at what point do we necessarily know that it's going to always be a back and forth? Because this whole society is based on transactions in my mind, in my framing, and it's not going to be like a moment at the end where it's a victory and we all applause like it's a movie. The minute that black empowerment takes place, it's a group in a constituency, and a lot of folks that you think are allies, some of them, I hate to say, maybe even black people, are saying to themselves, we need to figure out how to deconstruct this. Like, now I'm really in the zone and I'm going to get you talking. Like, my whole life when I was a child, meaning like from 0 on through about 13, right? I'm dealing with so much black leadership throughout Detroit. It blow your mind. Like I always say, Detroit is one of the few places on earth where you can say, man, I don't like that cardiologist that's a specialist in neurology. I'm going to pick this black person instead of that black person. Detroit is one of those few places you can do something very specific like that. Now, with that power structure, I think it was a belief that, like, okay, this power structure will always exist. It wasn't a thought process that things would change and that black power structure would not remain. As I say, when we run a play, they run a play. And the play they run, we got to prepare ourselves for it. And it's hard to sometimes know what that best play would be if we've never been in that position.
See, my thing is this, Kyrie. Maybe I get in trouble. I'm tired of intellectuals. Okay? Intellectuals, they're good at writing papers. They're good at having good talks. They can write the best books, but they can't create no wealth. It's all philosophy. It's all education that somebody else has given them, and now what has it done for the gross national product of the black race? Okay, so let me say this to you.
There we go.
Jackie Robinson. I'm getting back to the story.
There we go.
He was looking out for Jackie. They got this certain Negro
man.
that could talk good, look good, and he's a great ball player.
Yeah.
But if you look at that system, it was more players better than Jackie.
I mean, but Josh Gibson's proclivities. If Ty Cobb would have stuck his cleats into Josh Gibson would have picked up the bat and beat that white man to death, and then we'd have a whole different reality.
Think about it. If it was me, I say, y'all want to take me, but first you got to do one deal. You got to make sure that black baseball stays a Sandlot or a AAA organization.
And I would say that's hindsight being 2020.
Hold on now. But guess what? We're not doing it now. We're not doing it now. Hey, hold on, man. I'd had black baseball in perpetuity, having kids. Look at the PSL. We don't have diamonds. We don't have none of the accommodations that the Willie Horton them had back in the day.
No.
And we're not creating Willie Hortons of the day.
No.
Everybody want to shoot a hoop. But even now, the basketball courts and the rims are out of whack. So now you got to go pay to play.
Okay, now let me frame that. Willie Horton, Northwestern. Shout out my coach. So I know a little bit more about the Willie Horton story.
But the Willie Horton story is like any other story.
No, it's not.
It's not. Willie was a catcher. Willie was a great ball player.
Well, Willie was a great ball player and shout out Monica Lewis Patrick, his niece, that shared more of this. Willie was an excellent player from Tennessee. Yeah. So as he comes up, it was already a recruitment in place where Damon Keefe and John Conyers and Clyde Cleveland and all of these past Northwestern graduates were like, look, we're going to pour into him.
Great alumnus.
Right? So the alumni from Northwestern, the black men at the time said, we about to pour into this kid because this will be the kid to basically put Northwestern sports on the map that will ride out. Hence, it's the Willie Horton Scholarship that still exists at Northwestern. So it's like it was a collective intergenerational relationship between the success of Willie Horton representing something bigger than who Willie Horton was. And that, I don't think, was like even like when we talk about great athletes from Northwestern, I mean, that wasn't around for Kurt Jones. Nobody was like, all right, let's look out for Curtis Jones the way we looked out for Willie Horton. And and there's probably many dynamics why. But I'm just saying.
You also had Alex Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay. Alex Johnson's family, Ron, Alex, and I forgot the other brother's name. But what I'm saying to you, but guess who got all the credit? Who was the savior? The athletic director. What was his name?
I don't even know.
Back in the day, they always talked about him, the coach. Okay, but they never. These black athletes never got their just due. Okay, like they should have, because there was always a white grandfather in the process.
I mean, I figured he was white. You know.
And the system was perpetrated and ran by the white grandfathers. But I'm saying to you, but even through those processes, we were forced to do business with one another. We had a little gas station, and that's why the Green Book was so important. If we kept that Green Book in existence, that's, you know what the Green Book was.
Yeah, very much.
It was a travel book for black safety, but it also was for black commerce. Now, just imagine we'd have kept that system in place.
And I mean, it was the Black Yellow Pages, the Booker T. Washington Association.
Yes. All that's gone. All that's gone.
All right.
Okay. Mike Duggan yesterday said at the NACP dinner, he said there's more people coming back to Detroit than ever before. But guess what? What he didn't say in the Metro Times, there's more middle-class black folks have left the city of Detroit.
Well, it's more to add to that. But let's get back to a little bit to your story. Y'all just hopped in like a conversation where me and Keith be like, Keith, you know I don't agree with that, but I love the banter, and y'all see the relationship where it's like his opinions, as we see, can be polarizing, but he stands on business. And I'm gonna say so much of the hindsight being 2020. I just say let's give people at the time making those decisions, and as you making those decisions, Eastern Michigan. What was Eastern Michigan like for you?
Well, Eastern Michigan was a dream come true. Just like my mother, when I left, I'm the only child out of 9 to finish high school and finish college. My mother had this old treasure chest, put all my clothes in and tied it up in a rope. With a rope. Okay, I didn't have a safety lock. My safety lock was the rope. Okay?
Hey man, you got to make it do what it do.
So now Mr. Rooks that lived down across the street, he drove with me to the Greyhound bus station downtown, okay? Mr. Rooks could drive a car, but he couldn't read, but he knew where he had to go.
Hey, that's all it takes. That's all it takes.
My first day, I'm on the Greyhound bus. I get a ride to my dorm, and man, my roommate was white.
I assume so. You were in college.
From Alpena.
Okay.
Okay.
You never even heard of.
I never heard of that shit. Excuse me.
Yes.
Never heard of Alpena.
Yep.
And so, man, I was in a different world. But Metatol and Henry Ford, in a subliminal way,
prepared you.
It prepared me.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had some experience.
Yeah,
so
because I experienced with white people, and that was a problem with us kids that were in like Northwestern. They was having problems. Not no Southeast, some kids Kettering. They was having problems with that situation because
we understand it culturally because of the differences.
Yes.
So Eastern, you enjoyed it. Did you play football your whole time through?
Listen to this. I played football my first year, and then I lettered in track and field. But then I was getting ready to get married and all that other
stuff. 1 second. Time out. All right, let's fill this in. You got married that young?
No, I was getting ready to because I believe I had something that happened, and I wanted to take care of my responsibilities.
Okay.
And it was an interruption, and so, but I kept going. We broke up and stuff, and I came back to school in the spring, and I didn't look back. But my biggest experience, and really I got deep into, I was going down 2 tracks. The 2 sides of my education prowess was this. My major was speech. It was marketing, but it was a little intertwined with speech and dramatic arts. But two teachers, 2 of my professors that shaped my way of thinking when it came down to black was Tony Ingram, who's a professor. I still think he's at Oakland University. He was Eastern Michigan Black Studies teacher. And Tony Myrick, she was my Black African theaters teacher. And they taught me about blackness. They taught me about the culture and how it was shaped and how we could run with it and make it great. Okay? And that framed my way of thinking to this day. But my father always told me, nobody's better than you. That's the way I feel. Okay, I don't care what people say about me, what they think about me. I could care less because I serve my God. And my father always said, nobody's better than me. Now, what really happened that transformed my business thinking, I met a white conservative.
Ain't that something?
A white conservative.
And everybody black right now is saying, like, see, I knew it. I knew it.
But guess what? Guess what? His name was Joe Brayton.
Okay.
He's 86 years old. He has pancreatic cancer right now. But he's
heal up.
Yeah, but we still talk. We still see each other, and we still on the text line.
Okay.
Okay. He got me my first job into the white world.
Okay.
When I had a marketing class. Okay.
And one would say Jackie Robinson was feeling the same way.
Yeah, but guess what? But guess what? Jackie did something. I did something Jackie didn't do.
I'm just messing with you.
Hold on.
I'm just messing with you.
Guess what? I took what that white man taught me and went in business for myself.
Okay. All right. So what were you doing?
Okay. Finish with him. Joe Brayton did one thing that I love him to this day for what he did. There was a student named Guy Coles. His father and them they used to own Northville Downs. They're making apartments out of it now. He was a rich kid. He called me an N-word in the classroom. I was getting ready to knock his butt out. But Joe Brayton said, in my classroom, we're not having that in my classroom, and you're going to respect Keith Williams. He stood up for me, a conservative out of Grosse Pointe. He stood up for me. And to this day, I told him about last year, we came back, all the guys that was with more business forums. We came, that we honored Joe. I said, Joe, I said, it's not how many steps you take. It's the quality of the footprints you leave behind. And you have left some quality footprints amongst us, the guys that followed you. But more importantly, you left an indelible thing in my heart because what you did for me, standing up to that kid whose parents were filthy rich.
That's deep. So let's
You know that side of me.
Oh man, like I say, Keith, it's always y'all watch it. Like I say, the
You know this is
the
all in my
spirit.
book coming out.
I feel it. I feel it now. With it definitely check for that. Check for that. Is you gonna get? And actually, if you run across Keith, you gonna get as you see. You gonna definitely get some real. You gonna get some strong opinions and be ready to go.
Hold on.
You
The
know.
title of my book is Obstacles Conquered.
Okay. All right. Now, in that, after Eastern, where you what do you do after Eastern?
I started working at more business forums.
What's more business
It
forums?
was a forms company. If you look at sales receipts, they are printed sales receipts, but on a professional level. There was 9 key operations. See, this is how they get.
So 1 second, you mean like key punch and stuff like that?
It was actual forms. In a business, you got 9 key operations. You got to purchase something. You got to invoice something. You got to inventory something. You got to have if you're selling jewelry, you got to have sales slips. We printed them on a massive level.
Okay, and wait, for everybody that's young, you thinking like, huh, what? Computers were not used in the internet and all of that.
It was getting ready. They was getting acclimated.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, how the system, the language of the system was MS DOS. Now is with Microsoft, they call it, is Windows and all that other stuff.
So with that,
They put me in a territory, downriver, Lincoln Park, River. I was in. You talking about Dearborn? I was in a place that didn't want us out there.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I heard Lincoln Park in the media, I can imagine.
But guess what?
You know,
I left there. I left more. I stayed there about a year and went to Ford Motor Company in labor relations. So I worked there for 6 months, and it wasn't for me. And then I went back, called More Business Forum, and they took me back, and I made Achievement Club. I went down. They flew me down to Boca Raton, Florida.
So you're a salesperson.
I'm a salesperson by trade.
So selling. So people that need to know this, and everybody hates selling, but if you're a great salesperson, you'll always be working. It's always somebody that needs something sold in America. But so many people are afraid of sales. What do you think gave you the confidence? Because also you have to have blind faith, I think, to be a good salesperson too. You almost have to go in and feel as though what you're offering is something that this person knows that, like, what do they say? Until they say no, everything means yes.
So this is the two most important ingredients to make a successful salesperson: empathy and ego drive.
Both of those can kind of fight against each other too, but
you got to know, put yourself in somebody else's position.
Yeah.
You got to have the ego to deal with rejection as well as success.
Because that's the other thing. You got to be used to that.
You got to be used to rejection.
So with it, like
so you can see how my personality is shaped.
And was it all commission based?
It was all commission. I had a salary plus commission.
Okay.
At that time when I got out of college, I was making $11,000.
Okay. And at the time we would have to rate and get dressed and all of that stuff.
Then eventually I got a company car.
Okay.
I was the only black in the Midwest. When I made the Achievement Club, they flew me down to Boca Raton, Florida. I went through Fort Lauderdale and to one of the richest resorts in America. Get out the car. Lady asked me, can I take her luggage to inside the hotel? One night I'm on the walking around the swimming pool. A white guy asked me, how did I get here?
That's funny.
Yes. But guess what? I'm here because I'm here like you.
Well, I'm pretty sure you was proud of that moment.
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine. That tripped him out. I know that tripped him out like ever.
Hey, and when let me tell you something. When I did my first training out of college, they flew me to Glenville, Illinois, to Chicago, and I trained in Glenville, Illinois. Came back. My sister picked me up in the airport. I had my first briefcase. My sister said, how you feel? I said, I feel fantastic success. Okay,
Okay.
she said my whole demeanor have changed. I'm gonna tell you, I can truly say I've been playing above the rim, even from an impoverished situation.
Now let me explain what that is. Okay, for younger people, a briefcase. I don't know if y'all remember this, but at one point in time, pre-laptops, you would carry all your files and all your reports in a briefcase. Attorneys may still have them because they carry a lot of files and stuff like that, but it meant something as a sign of success to be a man in a suit with a briefcase. This was like a different culture, and what it said, it's like, oh, that's a businessman. You got a briefcase.
Yes, kids, their briefcase is a backpack. My briefcase was what size? A metal little box with locks on it in certain compartments within the briefcase.
That's deep.
So I can put my files.
Yep. I remember my dad used to always carry a briefcase.
Yeah, man, my nephew, this is what my nephew said. When they saw me coming around, they were afraid of me. They tell me that. They said I was strong, debonair brother. And they said, my nephew said, I wanted to be like my uncle.
So, in the same zone, what else is happening with family and everything? As you're growing in success of business, what's happening in family, community, friends? How's that?
It was different because I have changed my zip code. My zip code was different. Not to say the one I came from was bad, but I had a growth within this new zip code. Started meeting different people. Man, I had a terrific life. I've been to the White House 3 times as a Republican. Okay,
so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Black man, Republican Party, especially in your age, man. People look at you like you lost all your mind in marbles. How did it happen? Why?
Well, there's a family. His name was Mr. Lowell Perry, All-American in Michigan, EO director on the Gerald Ford. His son was my quarterback in high school. And they were moderate Republicans, Bill Milliken Republicans. And I got acclimated to that environment, and that's how I got involved. And then one day, I was invited to the Republican convention up in Grand Rapids. I'm not ashamed to say this, because my growth has always been about growth in economics, okay? I met a guy named Tom Dupree, and he was the Ottawa County chairman. That was the only county that voted for Bill Lucas when he ran for governor. Okay, I got acclimated to that, got in that environment, and all it was about me was trying to find me a poke chop, a contract.
Now, as you say that, it's definitely looked at as two things. A black person getting your agency is being used. And I mean, you could argue this on a lot of levels. Like, your agency is being used, meaning like your blackness itself is the reason why you're given opportunity. And you're trading your blackness in exchange for the opportunity. How did you wrestle with that?
I didn't wrestle with it. I was my whole focus was, my eyes was on the prize. I want to build me a business and leave something to my family.
Okay. All right. So in that, how long do you stay with the Republican Party before?
I stayed with him. This was what happened. I left Detroit and moved to Muskegon. And I'll never forget this, how I got there. Tom Dupree, I told him, I said, I want to go in business. It was being in the Democratic, around the Democrats, and this environment during that time was hard for me to get started in the printing business. That's where I came from. That's from forms to printing company. And it was hard. I couldn't get no loans and all this other stuff. So Tom Dupree said, Keith, I want you to come up to Muskegon, and I want to introduce you to the president of Muskegon Bank. And I'll never forget these words. As I was listening, going back and forth, Tom kicked me on the leg, and he did this. And then when it was my time to speak, and the president asked the guy these words, these was his exact words, how can I help you? I said, I want to go in business, and I want to participate in the American dream. He said, how much? I said, $150,000. He said, when can you move up here? So I moved from Detroit to Muskegon, not knowing the pitfalls that I was going to have to deal with. First, black folks didn't want me there because how did I get what they couldn't get?
Yeah, and you were Detroit. Like,
I'm a
so
Detroit.
people don't know that are outside of Detroit. it's that Detroit versus everybody. It definitely is inclusive in Michigan itself, and sometimes just the better understandings between brothers and sisters across the state and Detroiters, because oftentimes anytime Michigan's brought up, it's always Detroit, 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 especially Michigan and blackness. So a Detroiter moving to places like Kalamazoo, Muskegon, Alpena, those types of like Grand Rapids, it's like, man, y'all gonna give it to this Detroiter.
I mean, then the blacks didn't want me and the white folks didn't want me. Mm-hmm. And I only lasted a year. Mm. And I went to the owner, went to the new guy who's running the bank. I said, can I take the equipment with me and I'll make sure you get paid? And he said, okay. Then I went to Oakland Avenue. That's when I met Ernie Lofton, one of the best guys. I miss him dearly. It was my heart. And a guy named Roger Robinson. My printing business was on Oakland. I moved to Oakland Avenue. And then I started.
Oakland and what?
Oakland is the north end, on the north end.
I know, but like I know.
Old Sugar Hill Lounge was?
Yeah.
Right next door.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all Dolores Bennett footprint. I love it. All right. So why did you choose there, and what were you printing? What was the flow like?
Printing sheet fed. I had a AB Dick that put the sheet with 1117 and I keep forgetting the name. The sheets were 1824. So you can run 8 up on the sheet and all that stuff. You've been trying to take me back to my old ways.
Okay.
Okay.
And what was the and you already were great at sales. Did you how did you approach now the operations and sales? Were you the main person going out there getting business?
Everything. Found me a guy who can print. The first thing in that business, you got to find a guy that know how to run those machines. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to transfer, do the plates, typeset, all that stuff. You have to have good people. I didn't have that. I had one guy. And then I didn't have enough money to maintain my existence. So eventually I just, started doing my thing. And then I had to find another way.
So,
and that's in that history. Boy, every time I think about that, that was a sad part of my history because I couldn't make it work.
Because it was, but it's back to like you're learning lessons about capacity, money, and then also the number one thing, managing people, because we can obviously control our own expectations, but matching them with expanding in a team as I'm getting to grow that a little bit more. It's tough.
You're running a business.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
And who did you have as like, and this is where I always say I got a competitive advantage because I got my father, I've seen my grandfather, I've seen entrepreneurs in my life. So when I look at my friends that really never grew up around entrepreneurs, it's hard to me. It's sometimes even hard for me to empathize, back to that what you say, with how they're learning it. Who was teaching you your business lessons on the function of it?
Nobody.
So School of Hard Knocks.
I was buying paper, I was shipping, receiving, I was invoicing. I had a young lady I hired. I couldn't make the payroll. I went through the whole struggles.
Yeah, and let me say something. This is my analogy of being black in business. When you're black in business in America, $1 in your mind is worth $2, right? To everybody else, I should say, more so to society. So like when you hire people, like, I hire somebody, they think I get $1,000 contract, they think it's almost like $2,000 worth of activity that can happen. When in reality, because I'm black, it spends like 50 cents. So it's like such a disparity between how it functions, meaning that the minute, if you late 2 seconds with a payroll check, you getting, you getting that employee's whole family. If it's a sister, she bringing her brother, her boyfriend, her daddy, and her uncles up there to have a word with you. And if it's a brother, he bringing his homeboys, his brother, his uncles, and his and his dad up there to holler at you. Getting access to like the shipment coming on time. So like even like trucks and laying things out, like you're not given those same considerations. You will get it over time, but you need to build those relationships and the only way you really build them is by doing it. So it's like, how do you function till then? And it's tough because you're trying to get people to buy into it. Entrepreneurship, like you say, it's tough.
It's tough. See, I didn't have a guy in Detroit to shepherd me like Tom Dupree did. Take me to a bank and ask these words, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
that's the problem in the Democratic apparatus. They don't have a specific person to deal with the entrepreneurial spirit of African Americans. They need somebody who can say, how can I help you?
Well, that right there is, what do they say? It's not what you can do for your country. It's not what your country can do for you. It's what you can do for your country, which
Yes.
I think being black,
Yeah.
we done gave a lot to this country already.
And see, we don't have an infrastructure like that. How can I help you?
No. So from there, how do you get involved? Like, I mean, you're joining a party is different than being active. When do you start getting more involved in politics?
In the 80s, when I met Tom Dupree, and me and Bill Shooter became good friends.
So at that point, when do you switch and be like, okay, these Republicans are crazy?
No, I'm going to say this.
Okay.
Me and Bill Shooter became good friends. Mm-hmm. I went to his bachelor's party. Mm-hmm. I've been in his world. Mm-hmm. Bill Shooter's sister had a black child. Mm-hmm. People didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure a lot didn't.
Yeah, but me and him were good friends.
Yeah.
I don't have to be like your politics, but I can understand your interests. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I did that for a while. Went to the White House 3 times. The first time I went to the White House, it was a 25th anniversary of the Civil Rights Bill. I was in the room with when George Bush's father was signing the new bill. I was sitting next to Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch. I'll never forget going down the hallway. You see when the president walked through the hallway? Mm. I was in that hallway.
That's interesting.
Okay.
It was like, we need a black guy in this picture.
But it was people from all over the country.
Yeah.
Jesse Jackson was all there.
Yeah.
But I was representing from a Republican perspective.
So
let me finish this.
Okay.
I get there and I'm saying how Orrin Hatch and Ted Kennedy, they fighting, but they're the best of friends. Mm. I said, that's when I started learning about what politics was all about.
Interesting.
You just said the word, not the interest. Mm. It's all about interest.
Okay.
And that's how I look at this life. It's all about interest.
Okay.
How do we drive our interest to put together a finished product?
So you make the switch. When do you make the switch?
I made the switch when Mandela came to Tiger Stadium.
Interesting.
I was with George W. Bush and Bill Shooter at Michigan Avenue. I forgot
You said George H.W. or
George W.
So the son.
Yes.
So this is before is he even the owner of the Texas Rangers?
He was the owner of the Texas Rangers.
He was just the owner of the Texas Rangers at the time.
Texas Rangers were in town, and that's where I met George W. Bush with Bill Shooter. But it was the same week, I think, when Mandela was coming to Tiger Stadium.
Okay.
So I'm sitting up there I'm taking Bill Shooter around, mm-hmm. and this brother got up, this bad brother. We were so articulate. I said, I wanted to get to know this brother because he was talking my kind of language, blackness, how we live together, how we prosper together, how do we keep moving forward, not backward. It was Wendell Anthony. And I got converted by Wendell Anthony.
Ain't that something?
Okay, and Ernie Lofton, who was vice president for UAW.
Interesting. And I know that, like, when we talk about things can be polarizing and everything, that already became more polarizing for some people because, Wendell Anthony, just like you, he has, you depending upon how you look at the story and the arc, it's certain people that are supportive of what he does, and there's a lot of people that do not support what he does.
So, depends on your interests.
There you go.
But I was still a Republican at the time. Mm-hmm. But I finally, and how it really came together when I started participating in Sharon McPhail's mayoral race against Dennis Archer.
Interesting. So I didn't even realize that you were on that team.
To this day, me and Sharon are good friends.
So, so now you're politically more so in the state of Michigan and maybe from a national. Now you're talking local politics of Detroit. And this is so people know what that is. This is the end of the Coleman era. What was that like jumping into? Yeah,
Sharon inherited the Coleman Young's operation during the campaign.
yeah.
But Dennis Archer
had the support of everyone that did not like Coleman Young throughout his whole tenure.
Yes,
so basically,
yes,
corporate interests and a lot of white suburban interests were so for everything that was representative of Dennis Archer.
Yes.
What was that like jumping in this foray? Because now you kind of were looking from the state and the national, and now you're seeing Detroit local politics.
I saw the elitists in the scuffling blacks at loggerheads.
Break it down.
If you look who was around Dennis Archer, it was the Bourgeois and those kind of folks. Mm-hmm. Sharon was grassroots, union guys, that kind of mentality, pull up your shirt, that kind of guy, dirt on your pants and all that kind of stuff. That's who she was appealing to. Dennis had enough black people with enough white people to get him over the top.
So after that, and it was shocking for many people because everybody in my community was so supportive of Sharon because Coleman's blessing and so many things. And let me also frame this. I still think, and we're going to do a forum on this later on, I just don't think at the time, just due to sexism, I don't know necessarily how much Detroit was ready for a woman mayor, period.
Even some black women didn't like Sharon.
Yeah, well, a lot of black women didn't like Sharon.
They didn't. And that's why you may still have that in the current configuration.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And when a woman running for office, for the highest office of the city of Detroit, is going to have a few problems.
And you know a little bit about that because your wife, as I always say, it's such a short list where I just blindly support politicians. Other than that, it's kind of like what he say, kind of interest based, but usually, and all interests are on play, even apathy, which we debate.
Then you can't be beautiful either. Beautiful intelligence as a woman in a black city and around black men, it's a problem.
It's
a problem.
It sounds provocative, but what he's saying, I actually agree with because we've seen how it plays out. Sadly, these things become pervasive that tie into a lot of the insecurities that I still blame a lot of white hegemony and white supremacy for the way that we've been poisoned and conditioned in this sickness of this society to look at things. So it's almost like, oh, you like her or what? It's just all types of craziness. So after that, how are you seeing the landscape and where you see your position in it?
Well, I was just learning, I was trying to do business. All that I learned, I was just trying to do business. Mm-hmm. But I saw the political process is the way I can do business. I was still brokering, printing, and in the campaigns, a lot of printing goes on. I was trying to get me a contract somewhere.
Okay.
I was trying to eat.
I'm pretty sure Mays held down like 75% of all black folks. But I'm going to
tell you something. The man it's two to three gentlemen that I love, business-wise. It was, four. Joe Brayton, who taught me about whiteness and the white business world. Reverend Anthony showed me about the culture and how culture we can do something good for our culture from a black perspective. Then it was Dave Sneed. Dave Sneed was my heart. Dave Sneed was getting ready to do something for me that would have made me rich for the rest of my life. But he got thrown out. And at the time, when he was getting ready to make that transition with me. And I'm just saying, I've been fortunate to travel down different zip codes. But I kept my eyes on the prize. And I always remembered what my father said, nobody's better than you. And so some people think I'm a bull in the china shop. Yes, I am, because I'm trying to get something done.
So with it, you running politically. When does it hit you to be like, all right?
When I found out what they was doing in 2023, 2003, I said I'm gonna run for office. No, it was 2001. 2001, I ran against Keith Stallworth and Cheryl Cushionberry.
Okay. Now, let's frame this for people that don't live in Detroit.
Those two names.
Those two names are as like it would be like a Kennedy or something. Like that's not like running against any old body. Those are like political heavyweight families, like especially like black politics. Like they're the people that like when people come to town and say, "Hey, we need the black vote." Those are places that they stopping by at.
So I lost. Keith Stallworth had 6,100 votes. Cheryl Cushionberry had 983 votes. I had 4,900 votes.
Okay.
And I came in third place.
Yeah.
Keith had some trouble. He had to leave the commission. Jewel promised me that she was going to appoint me, and she never did. She went with Cheryl Cushionberry. So I devised a strategy. When Gil Hill and Joanne Watson running for city council, okay, Jewel appointed Cheryl Cushionberry to a temporary. You can only go temporary. You have to run in there.
Wait. Let me explain this for people. So, like, if a person steps down, and then you appoint a person, that person gets incumbency at this time. For people that know anything about politics, incumbency means you're in the seat already. To beat an incumbent, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very unlikely. Hence, that's why I have a big problem against all appointments, even if I support the person that is being appointed. Hence why judging and being judges is so tough, because a lot of judges are appointed, and then even if they end up in runoffs. But continue now.
So my conference grew because I was running against 30 years of institutional name.
Yeah.
How many Keith Williams have you ever saw got elected to office?
Not a lot, my brother.
Cheryl. So when Cheryl got appointed, I was promised. Cheryl got appointed. She had to run a re-election, and a gentleman did a poll for me. Cheryl's leading 20-16, and I said to myself, I got a shot now. I started walking the streets. Got me a little money. I started mailing and all this other stuff. I told a story. They had a picture of me and my mother under my arms on my sister's wedding. And then I put my degree, my diploma on some advertisement. I told a story about me, okay? And then I started talking and walking, and I upset her. I won in the special election, and then I had to come back. She tried it again, and I really whooped her the second time. I was well on my way to one day being the mayor.
Okay. All right. Now I know a lot of people would say, "All right, that's ambitious," but let's go into just county commissioner.
I'm gonna go there.
What was it like being in that space? How did you like politics when you were in there? Because now you're inside.
I say the county commission seat was the best job I ever had in America. I got paid for doing something I liked. I was learning the process, learning how to write policy. I was getting good at it.
Yeah.
And then then we had this tragic situation, and Jewel had to step down. Bob Collin came to me and said, Keith, we want you to be the chair of the commission. And I said no, because I had some stuff that I had to clear up, and my mind could have been an impediment. And then Bob said these words. So Zom, I was dealing with Zom and the controller. They said, everybody got your issues. Okay, Keith, you need to take it. To this day, that's the worst mistake I ever made.
Interesting.
To this day.
Interesting.
Then after that, everybody said I turned on Jewel, but I'm not gonna go deep into that because Jewel, as we made up, I did a mea culpa on. I can pull it up where I told her I apologized to her. When I told her told her to step down, I went in the hallway and started crying because I didn't want to hurt that sister, but she was hurting me too. But I was taught to be bigger than that. Okay, and then I never forget this. When I was asked to be the chair, when I turned it down, because I gave Ed Boyk at the time my word that I would support him. I'm strong on this. When you give your word is all you have. Okay, and that's how my life has been, giving my word. If I say I'm gonna do something, you can count on me.
Now, for people that don't understand, also, we're talking about Wayne County. So Detroit sits and resides in Wayne County. Oftentimes, when we talk about the politics of Detroit, we're just thinking the city of Detroit. Wayne County is a massive entity with huge budget, a lot going on, a lot of things happening. Shout out Warren Evans, the commissioner, the executive of Wayne County. And when we think of the functionality of it, airport, jail, so many roads, like it's a lot of budgets, a lot of understanding. Legislatively, how did you approach that? How did you prepare yourself?
The bottom line is, as I never had no experience that, but I had experience in life, and I'm good at understanding process. And one thing I was good about is finding the money. That's what I'm good at to this day.
And it's a lot of money in Wayne County.
Yes, but one thing you got to have, you can't sit in the seat and try to get something for yourself. You'll go to jail.
You got that right. So with that, were you looking out for like how did you empower how did you empower some of those black businesses that you went through those experiences to say, all right, let's get them in this system?
Today they don't know how I got beat. I can take you into communities right now and you'll see them hugging me. Mm-hmm. I was that good. And I'm not trying to say it from an egomaniac standpoint, but I was good.
So how did you go about like getting that system of like empowering some of those black businesses and things like that with contracts through county?
The bottom line is I did forums. I was doing a lot of stuff. Plus, I was at every meeting. I showed up on your porch. If you had a little business gathering, I'm trying to help you. First, you got to get it right. Got to get you a subchapter S, LLC. You got to do it right. Got to have a bank account. Your side hustle could be your permanent hustle the right way. Okay? That's how I was looking at it. I saw everybody as an opportunity to make themselves better.
So along this time, one of the things that it's so many things, but I originally remember it was there before, like you were thinking about like a farmer's market right there and like that,
yes.
like right off the lodge.
Kyrie, I'm beyond. I was playing above the rim. These folks talk about farmer's market, but I created one on Livernois and Johnson Lodge.
Yeah.
When I was a county commissioner, I put money over there so we can grow and sell our goods.
Yeah.
So these guys walking around when the revolution come, brothers, and all this other stuff, I was building businesses, I was helping people, and I was loving up my people at the same time. And in my mind, that we don't have to depend on nobody. We can depend on ourselves. We 85% black city. We can control our own destiny. We don't need nobody to control our destiny if we just love each other, hug one another, and put our resources together. I get excited about that.
You do. And I remember that. And I remember because
people don't know that I did that.
And I remember that vividly because I remember, just driving down Livernois and I'm seeing all of the vendors and I'm seeing the structure and everything. And I'm like, man, this looks kind of like Eastern Market because at the time
What was the concept? My concept was black folks that live on the east side should have, from a demographic standpoint and a driving standpoint, that's good for them. I wanted something for the west side. Because everybody couldn't go on the east side. They didn't have transportation. I'm saying they could walk from the neighborhood, go buy them some corn, tomatoes, and all that other stuff.
What was is because even a project like that, very forward thinking at the time, in the buy-in, in getting that buy-in, and sometimes even me with the work I do, it's tough to try to figure out like, man, it seems like this is right for you. We've been so like we've been given such a lack of opportunity that a defeatist attitude is pervasive
Because
with
that's
many of us.
all they know is failure.
Yeah.
They don't know what success look like. Let me tell you something else I did. A month ago, Mike Duggan just named Dexter Elmhurst after Helen
Moore.
Helen Moore.
Yeah, Mother Helen Moore.
Let me tell you the story. The story about Dexter Elmhurst. It was who was the brother? He was the first black car dealer in America that sold to the big three. He lived in Blackbond. His business, he had the Studebaker dealership, and eventually he had a Chrysler dealership. They ran I-375 through his business, so he had to find a location. He found Dexter Elmhurst. Where Dexter Elmhurst City, what's his name?
Now, this brother, I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I can pull it up. That was his dealership. In 1974, in 1971, after the riots and all that other stuff, and poverty and drugs hit that area, he closed up. He lived in Boston, lived in the Boston Edison community. This guy he was a smart entrepreneur. What happened was the state of Michigan came in with his programs. Then eventually the state left. And it was laid dormant. I was the county commissioner. I found out the state had owned the building. I had a ZOM elder, the deputy county exec, do the research and see how we can get the building. We got the state of Michigan to transfer the building to the county, and then in turn donated I gave the Dexter Elmhurst Association the building for $1. Plus I gave $150,000 seed money. Helen had nothing to do with that.
Not at that point.
At that point.
No. I can give you a little bit more of the Dexter Amherst history, even from when you picked up. And I remember that. I do remember that. Because I remember when Al Ward, from the last person from the state that ran that,
Yes.
that was working with Broadside Press and so many other things. But and rest in peace, Al Ward. And from Al Ward, it's in limbo and nothing until you make that action. And then from that action, it sits like right in the heart. And this is back when, like, to me, the car wash was still active and Broad Street Parade is still happening.
I was a part of that too.
And
I was a Grand Marshal on the Broad Street Parade.
I remember that one.
Hey, I want everybody to know who Keith Williams is.
Okay, I got you.
I never left the community. I could live anywhere else in America. I chose to stay in Detroit.
I love it. And like a lot of these structures, if not resourced the right way, it's not going to be empowered. And then that baton ends up Fred Durall. Fred
Durall's father, when I found out he had something to do with how I ascertained the building.
And then that's Junior, and then Fred Durall the third ends up partnering, and now we're at even with the funding that's needed that the mayor spoke of in his most recent State in the City address. I think more resources are going to still be needed to repair the center, but then furthermore to sustain the center. It's still going to take so much more buy-in, but like it's a wonderful asset that's poured in, and I'm so glad that so many people have, but it also is a great lesson in how things happen over time and how you need to steward and care for community. So with that, I mean, coming to a close, and I love that you shared this much time with me and so much of your story. What do you think will be some of the keys to break some of that defeatist attitude, to want to embrace success? Because some of this also is us for so long not being given any opportunity, not given opportunity. We don't even know how to contextualize it the right way.
Well, let me just say this to you. First, you got to love yourself. Our folks don't know how to love each other. We've been taught historically, systematically, that we can't do anything with each other. Until we change that mindset, nothing's going to change. My thing is just three words: repair, heal, and rebuild. First, the repairing standpoint. First, we got to get the mayorship back so we can start reclaiming what is due to us. We had to change some of the structural things, like see if we can how we improve on these credit scores and all this stuff, because that's one of the impediments. We got to have some financial institutions that we can go borrow from so we can grow our own retail and our own economy. The second thing is this, man, we got to heal spiritually. We have to heal spiritually. We don't heal spiritually. And what's that Bible say? If my people are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my faith and turn from your wicked ways, then I will hear from you, then you will hear from heaven and I will heal the land. We got to start turning away from those evil things that is structurally is keeping us get to the next movement. And then once we do the healing part, then we got to start the rebuilding. And that's why I got into the reparations movement, for one thing only, to create a new black economy for black folks and get what was rightfully due to us.
All right. With that being said, thank you so much. But now I got those classic Detroit is Different questions. And this we're going to close out. Very first car, year, make, and model, and year you got it.
Dodge Dart.
Dodge Dart.
That was in I graduated 1977.
Okay. Where's the first place you went when you got it?
I went to the Dodge dealership on Livernois with my father, and I drove it back to the house.
Okay, so back to the crib. And then
to the crib.
After the crib, did you go to your friend's crib?
My Homer Street, 15763 Homer.
Okay. All right. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
We a Winner.
Okay.
By Curtis Mayfield.
Impressions. I love it.
Impressions. And one selection from the Temptations.
I get to pick that?
Yes.
All right. I guess if we going with Temptations, I mean, we gonna get funky with the Temptations and Rick James, Standing on the Top.
That's a good one.
There we go.
And the one that what I like about the 60s and the 70s, brothers had style. My Girl. We weren't beating up no women. We was talking about My Girl. We was
well, not in songs, but I'm pretty sure. Sure Tina Turner has a couple.
Yeah, but she got her own experience. Like everybody in America got their own experience.
Yes.
But my thing was, it was about love, it was about style, and it was about togetherness. And that's what I loved about the 60s and 70s.
Okay. So, and then last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Wow. It should be changed.
Well,
Cash should be changed. Woodrow Wilson should be changed.
Many slave owner names.
So all them names, and we should not be buying Detroit Free Press.
So Woodward, who would you change it to?
John Conyers.
Interesting. Why?
Because he was responsible for me becoming a Wayne County Commissioner.
Ain't that something? The chairman again. Thank you so much. All right, that's Detroit is Different. Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.